The night was quiet, covered in thick white snow. The wind moved slowly, carrying a deep cold that cut through the skin. On a lonely path, an alien girl sat in an old wheelchair. Her skin glowed faint blue under the moonlight, and her silver hair caught the falling snowflakes. She looked young and fragile, yet her face showed a story of suffering. Her tribe had left her behind. She had begged them not to go. She had pleaded for them to see her as more than broken, but to them, weakness was shame. Her legs no longer worked, and in their eyes, she had no value. So they pushed her away, leaving her to face the freezing night. Now, she sat alone. The snow gathered on her shoulders, her hands trembling from the cold. Her breath came out in white clouds, sharp and painful. The silence around her was heavy, almost crushing. Every sound of the wind reminded her she was not wanted, not loved, not needed. But not far away, inside a warm house, a man stood at the window. He was human, living alone on the edge of the forest. His fire glowed behind him, lighting the wooden walls of his home. He saw her sitting outside in the snow. At first, he thought it was only a shadow, but when he looked closer, he realized it was a girl, an alien girl. He narrowed his eyes, confused and cautious. She looked different, not like the humans he knew. Her skin was glowing faintly, her hair long and shining silver. But what struck him most was the chair she sat in, the way her body did not move, the way her head hung down as if she was ready to give up. The man's heart tightened. He told himself to stay inside. This was none of his business. Aliens often brought trouble, but something inside him refused to let him turn away. The girl lifted her head weakly. Her glowing eyes met his through the snow. Even from a distance, he could see the sadness in them. It was the kind of sadness that carried years of pain. For a moment, it felt as if she was silently asking for help without saying a word. The man stepped back from the window. He paced inside, torn between fear and compassion. Should he open his door to her? What if danger followed her? What if this was a trap? But every time he looked back, he saw her body shivering harder, her thin arms pulling the coat she barely had around her. She looked like she might not survive the night. The snow continued to fall, covering the wheels of her chair, burying her slowly in white. Her fingers curled tightly as if holding on to the last bit of strength. She whispered into the cold, her voice weak and broken. "Why, did they leave me?" Her words disappeared into the night air. She lowered her head again, her eyes heavy with tears that froze against her cheeks. She did not see the human move away from the window. She did not see him reach for his coat and open the door. But the sound of boots crunching on snow was coming closer. And for the first time that night, hope flickered inside her heart. The door creaked open and a rush of warm air spilled into the frozen night. The human stepped out, his boots sinking into the fresh snow. His breath rose in clouds as he pulled his coat tighter. Each step toward the girl echoed in the silence, the crunch of snow beneath his feet sounding louder than it should. The alien girl lifted her head weakly. Her glowing eyes widened slightly, as if she could not believe someone was coming for her. For a moment, fear flickered inside her. Was he here to chase her away too? She had learned not to trust, not to expect kindness. The man stopped a few feet away, his figure tall and solid against the glowing light of his house. He studied her carefully. She was not like anything he had seen before. Her skin carried a soft blue glow, almost like moonlight-made flesh. Strange markings curved across her cheeks, symbols that seemed alive with faint light. She was beautiful, but fragile, like glass about to break. He spoke, his voice rough but steady. "You'll freeze out here." The girl lowered her gaze. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but only a whisper escaped. "Leave me. It doesn't matter." The man felt a sting in his chest. Something in her voice carried a lifetime of pain. He crouched down to meet her at eye level. The snowflakes clung to his dark hair and coat, but he didn't care. He saw her shivering hands gripping the edge of the wheelchair, holding on as if letting go would mean death. "Listen," he said softly. "I don't know why you're here. I don't know who left you, but if you stay in this cold, you'll die." Her eyes filled with tears that froze before they could fall. She shook her head slightly, as if life and death no longer mattered to her. The man hesitated. He knew nothing about her people, nothing about their ways. For all he knew, they would come looking for her. And if they did, they might come for him too. Oh, helping her could put his own life at risk. His mind told him to turn back, to close the door, to pretend he never saw her. But then she whispered again, her voice breaking. Why? Why would a human save me? Even my own people wouldn't. The man's throat tightened. He had seen loneliness before. He had felt it himself, living alone for so long at the edge of the forest. But the loneliness in her eyes was deeper, like an endless well of sorrow. He sighed heavily and made his choice. Because no one deserves to be left to die. Without another word, he removed his coat and wrapped it around her small frame. She gasped at the sudden warmth, her glowing skin shivering under the heavy fabric. He gripped the handles of her wheelchair and began to push her slowly toward the house. The snow crunched beneath them, leaving 2 tracks behind, one of boots, one of wheels. Inside, the golden light of the fire flickered warmly, waiting. She turned her head slightly, watching the shadows of his house grow closer. For the first time in years, hope touched her heart, fragile but real. But as he pushed her inside, a chill that had nothing to do with the snow crept over him. He felt the weight of unseen eyes in the dark trees beyond. Someone, or something, was watching, and he knew deep down that by saving her, he had just invited danger to his doorstep. The wooden door closed with a heavy thud, shutting out the storm. The fire inside the house glowed warmly, filling the room with orange light. The alien girl blinked, her glowing eyes adjusting to the sudden brightness. Her trembling hands loosened slightly as she felt the heat brush across her cold skin. The human pushed her wheelchair closer to the fire. He crouched beside her and set a heavy blanket over her thin frame. For a moment, she only stared at the flames, as if she could not believe the warmth was real. The snow that had gathered on her hair and shoulders melted slowly, dripping down her silver strands like falling jewels. Her lips parted, her voice weak, but full of wonder. It's warm. The man nodded quietly. He poured hot water into a small cup and held it out to her. Drink this. Slowly. She hesitated, staring at the cup as though it was some strange miracle. When her trembling fingers failed to lift it, he carefully brought it to her lips. She sipped, and the heat spread through her chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, the cold inside her began to fade. Her eyes grew moist again, but not from pain. They were tears of something she had forgotten. Comfort. Why are you helping me? She whispered. The man leaned back slightly, studying her. Because you needed it. His voice was simple, but his eyes were steady. She shook her head slowly. My people, they left me. They said I was broken. They said I had no place. Her voice cracked as she spoke, her alien markings glowing faintly with each painful word. The man's jaw tightened. He had seen cruelty before, but to abandon someone so young, so helpless, it cut deeper than he expected. He didn't know her world, but he knew enough to hate what had been done to her. He knelt again, meeting her glowing eyes. You're not broken. You're still alive. That means you still matter. Shavdade. Words stunned her. She had never heard anything like them. She lowered her gaze quickly, as if afraid to believe him, but the warmth of the fire in his voice wrapped around her like a shield. Silence filled the room, broken only by the crackle of burning wood. For a while, the girl simply breathed, letting her shaking body calm. The man busied himself, preparing simple food. When he placed a bowl in her hands, her fingers shook less. She tasted the broth and closed her eyes, savoring every drop. She had been treated like trash by her own people, yet here, a stranger, an alien to her, was showing her more kindness than she had ever known. But as comfort grew, so did fear. She knew her tribe did not forgive. They would see this act of kindness as betrayal. Her glowing eyes darted toward the window, shadows moving in her imagination. She shivered again, not from the cold, but from dread. The man noticed. He followed her gaze toward the dark glass. For a second, he thought he saw something move outside, shadows that did not belong to trees. His hand tightened around the edge of the table. "They'll come for me," she whispered, her voice small. "They won't let me go." The human turned to her, his face calm but his eyes sharp. "Then they'll have to go through me first." The fire snapped loudly, sending sparks into the air. The girl stared at him, her breath caught in her chest. For the first time since her people had abandoned her, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt safe. But outside, hidden in the snow-covered trees, faint lights flickered. Her tribe was already searching. The night grew heavier. The storm slowed, but the silence that followed carried a different weight, one filled with danger. The alien girl sat close to the fire, her glowing eyes wide, her hands gripping the blanket tightly. She could feel them before she saw them. The presence of her tribe, the same tribe that had abandoned her. The human stood near the window, watching the dark tree line. Faint blue lights flickered in the distance, moving like slow lanterns through the forest. But these were no lanterns. They were the energy spears of her people. They were coming. His chest tightened. He knew strangers were bad news. Yet here he was, standing between one frightened girl and a group of unknown warriors. He clenched his fists, steadying his breath. The girl whispered, her voice trembling. "They found me." Her markings glowed faintly on her face, reacting to her fear. She wanted to shrink into herself, to vanish into the warmth of the fire, but she knew it was too late. Moments later, sharp knocks rattled the wooden door. A voice followed, cold and commanding. "Human, step aside. She does not belong to you." The man did not move. He glanced at the girl, then back at the door. Slowly, he opened it. The night air rushed in, icy and biting. Outside, 4 alien warriors stood tall. Their skin glowed with the same pale light as the girl's, but stronger, more hostile. Their eyes were sharp, burning with contempt. They carried long spears that hummed with energy. The leader stepped forward, his voice dripping with disdain. "You dare shelter the broken one? She is nothing. She was cast out. Return her to us, or suffer." The girl shrank back in the wheelchair, her heart racing. She wanted to speak, to beg, but no words came out. The human looked at the warriors steadily. His voice was calm but hard as iron. "She's not nothing, and she's not going anywhere," the alien laughed bitterly, the sound sharp against the quiet snow. The leader sneered. "You think you can keep her? She is a burden. She cannot walk, she cannot fight. She is worthless even to us, her own blood." The man's jaw clenched. He had heard enough. He stepped fully outside, letting the cold hit him. His eyes locked onto theirs. "Worthless? No. You're blind. She has more strength in her than all of you. She survived when you threw her away, and as long as I breathe, she won't be abandoned again." The warriors narrowed their glowing eyes, their spears buzzing louder. The leader's face twisted with anger. "Very well, human. You choose death with her. But know this, our tribe does not forgive. We will return, and we will burn your shelter to the ground." The snow swirled around them as they turned sharply, disappearing into the dark forest. Their blue lights faded, leaving the night silent once more. The man closed the door slowly, his hand still tight on the handle. He exhaled, his body tense. Behind him, the girl's hand shook as she clutched the blanket. "They will come back," she whispered. Her eyes shimmered with fear, but also something new, something she had never felt before. Hope. Because for the first time, someone had stood for her. The fire had burned low, its glow soft against the wooden walls. The human added fresh logs, sparks flying upward, but his mind was not on the fire. His thoughts were on the warning. The tribe would return. He had no doubt about it. And when they did, they would not come with words. They would come with violence. Behind him, the alien girl sat in her wheelchair, her glowing eyes fixed on the flames. Her hands rested on her lap, but her mind was restless. The words of her tribe echoed again and again. Broken, useless, nothing. She clenched her fists, trying to bury them. But then another memory rose. The human standing outside, refusing to give her up. His words still rang inside her chest. "You're not nothing." When he turned to her, she quickly lowered her gaze. He noticed the way her markings glowed faintly, like ripples of light moving across her skin. Fear still lived inside her, but beneath it, he could see something else. Something waiting to rise. He knelt in front of her. "They'll come back. You know it, and so do I." She nodded weakly. "Then we can't just wait. If they come, we need to be ready." Her eyes widened. "But I can't fight. My legs, they—" He cut her off gently. "Fighting isn't always with legs. You're smart. I can see it. Help me prepare. Show me what you can do." The girl stared at him. No one had ever asked her to be part of anything. No one had ever believed she had something to give. The idea felt strange, almost unreal. He pulled out a set of tools from his table and set them before her. Simple human tools: metal, wire, rope, nails. He began showing her how traps could be made, how lines could be hidden in snow, how fire could be used as a shield. Slowly, she leaned forward, curiosity flickering through her fear. Her glowing fingers moved clumsily at first, but soon they grew steady. She adjusted wires, twisted metal, and designed angles he had not even thought of. Her mind worked quickly, her eyes sharp with focus. She explained how to hide traps in ways even her own tribe wouldn't notice. The human watched her, surprised and impressed. "You've done this before?" he asked. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "No, but I've watched. They thought I was useless, but I watched everything." For the first time, pride shone in her glowing eyes. Days passed. Together they worked quietly, strengthening the house, placing traps, creating signals. At night, they spoke by the fire. She told him about her childhood, about the moment her legs stopped working, about the silence that followed from her people. He listened, his eyes soft, never once looking at her as broken. And little by little, the girl changed. She still could not walk, but her spirit no longer sat in the shadows. Her laughter returned, light and shy, filling the house with a sound it had not heard in years. But outside, the forest grew restless. Strange tracks appeared in the snow. The birds had gone silent. The human and the girl both knew what it meant. Her tribe was moving closer. Yet this time, she was not afraid to face them. The night was quiet again, too quiet. The snow had stopped falling, and the forest stood like a frozen painting. But the silence was wrong. Heavy, waiting. The human stood at the doorway of his cabin, eyes scanning the dark tree line. His breath fogged in the cold, but his grip on the axe in his hand was steady. Inside, the alien girl sat by the fire, her glowing eyes wide. She felt it before he did. The air shifted, her markings pulsing faintly on her face. She whispered almost in fear, "They're here." The human turned, his jaw tightening. He gave her a single nod, then stepped outside. Blue lights flickered between the trees. One by one, the warriors of her tribe appeared, their spears glowing with sharp energy. Their leader walked at the front, his eyes filled with hate. Behind him, more shadows moved, strong, armed, ready for blood. The leader raised his spear, pointing it at the cabin. "Human, this is your last chance. Hand her over. She is ours to throw away." The human's voice carried steady and clear into the frozen night. "She is not yours anymore." The warriors growled, the sound like thunder. Then they charged. The ground shook as heavy feet pounded the snow. Energy spears lit the darkness in streaks of blue. But before they could reach the cabin, the first trap snapped. Ropes hidden under the snow whipped upward, pulling two warriors off their feet and slamming them into the icy ground. Another stepped forward, but a hidden pit of sharpened stakes opened beneath him. He screamed as he fell, the snow covering him like a grave. The human swung his axe with raw force, meeting one warrior head-on. Sparks flew as the axe clashed against the glowing spear. The air cracked with light, but the human pushed back, his muscles burning with strength and will. Inside, the girl gripped the edge of her wheelchair, her glowing eyes darting. She could not fight Wit, her body, but her mind was sharp. She shouted directions to the man, her voice steady. "Left side, trap under the snow. Pull the rope, now." He listened, moving as she guided. Another trap snapped, releasing a swing of burning oil he had set earlier. Flames lit the night, forcing the warriors back with shouts of rage. The leader roared, his voice echoing through the forest. He leaped forward, striking at the human with a storm of blows. Each hit was heavier, faster, filled with fury. The man blocked, staggered, fought back with every ounce of strength he had. His arms ached, but he did not fall. Then, from behind, one of the tribe slipped past the traps and aimed his spear toward the cabin. The alien girl gasped. Without thinking, she grabbed a fallen rope with shaking hands and yanked. A heavy beam swung from above, slamming into the attacker and sending him crashing into the snow. Her chest heaved, her markings glowing bright. She had done it. She had saved him. The battle raged on, but the tide had shifted. Warrior after warrior fell to traps, to fire, to the man's unbreakable will, and to the girl's sharp mind. Finally, only the leader remained, his chest heaving, his glowing eyes burning with rage and disbelief. The human stood before him, axe in hand, blood and snow mixing at his feet. "Leave," he growled, "or stay and join the rest." The leader's face twisted. For a moment it looked as though he would strike again. But then, with a roar of frustration, he turned and vanished into the forest, his blue glow fading with the others. The night fell silent once more. The human dropped his axe, his breath ragged. Inside, the girl's tears spilled freely, not of fear, but of something stronger. For the first time, she felt victory. The night grew still after the battle. The snow lay broken with tracks, scorch marks, and fallen spears. The forest was quiet again, but it was not the same silence as before. It was the silence of survival. The silence after a storm has passed. The human leaned against the cabin doorframe, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His axe hung loosely in his hand, the blade stained. His body ached, but his spirit stood unshaken. He looked out across the snow where the last of the tribe had fled, their glowing lights swallowed by the darkness. Inside, the alien girl waited, her glowing eyes fixed on him. When he stepped in, she gasped softly. Blood streaked his arm, his coat torn, but he was alive. Relief washed over her face. "You fought them all," she whispered. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with awe. He gave a small, tired smile. "We fought them. Together." She lowered her gaze, her markings glowing gently along her skin. "I never thought I could matter. My people always said I was nothing. Tonight, for the first time, I felt strong." He crouched in front of her, his eyes steady, soft in the glow of the firelight. "You were strong long before tonight. They just couldn't see it. But I did." Her lips parted, her breath shaky as emotions she had long buried rose inside her. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why risk everything? For me?" The man hesitated, then reached out, placing his rough hand gently over her trembling fingers. His voice was quiet, but every word carried weight. "Because you were never broken. You were never a burden. You were someone who deserved more than pain." The girl's eyes shimmered, tears glowing faintly as they slid down her cheeks. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever seen her as whole, as worthy, as enough. She leaned forward slightly, her silver hair catching the fire's glow. For the first time, a real smile touched her lips. "You gave me something my own people never did. You gave me a home." The man squeezed her hand gently. "And you gave me something I thought I'd lost. Someone to fight for." The fire crackled between them, warm and alive. Outside, the snow reflected the starlight, the world calm again. Inside, two souls from different worlds sat together, bound by something deeper than blood, deeper than tribe. The girl whispered, almost to herself, "They abandoned me to die, but you gave me life." He met her gaze, his eyes steady, his voice firm yet full of quiet affection. "And as long as I live, you will never be abandoned again." She closed her eyes, leaning her head against his shoulder, letting herself rest for the first time in years. The warmth of the fire wrapped around them, but the greater warmth was the bond between them, unbreakable, undeniable. The human looked down at her, his heart heavy but full. He knew the future would not be easy. Her tribe might return. More dangers might come. But he also knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, they would face it together. And in that moment, as the storm passed and the night grew calm, the paralyzed alien girl and the human who chose her became more than survivors. They became each other's family.